Right, welcome back, lads. It's Pipecast number 4, and today you're with Harry and
Dion,
and we're doing pipes versus cigars.
the eternal war.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. You knew it was coming. Right, so the thing is, really, I remember talking back in the first episode that we did when we were talking about how we got into pipes, and I said that like up until I'd got my first pipe, I'd been occasionally buying a cigar, and I wasn't getting a lot out of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then I got my first pipe, and I really enjoyed the pipe, like straight off the bat. And it was just recently, like maybe a couple of months ago, that I just got an itch to go back to trying cigars. And I think probably that from exposure to like tobacco and from the pipe and building up a nick tolerance and getting used to the like flavors of tobacco. I know they're like different tobaccos, but I think that when I went back to a cigar, I got 2 cigars actually. I got a Joya de Nicaragua Clásico B, and I got a Drew Estate Larutan, and it was a tiny little cigar, and I fired up the Larutan, and the cap was artificially sweetened with some kind of like sinful sucrose, bro. And it just coated my mouth straight away, and I hated it. Yeah. I washed my mouth out with water, wouldn't do it. I had to wash it out with bourbon.
Yeah, we've all done it.
Yeah, we've all been there. We've all had to wash our mouths out with high-proof alcohol.
Yeah, it's the price we pay in it.
Exactly.
For the art.
But we'll bear that burden. But I hated it, even though the tobacco itself was delicious.
Yeah.
That sweetness. Anyway, I lit up the Joya, and I was straight away. I got the flavor, which I'd never done before on a cigar, and I was really impressed with it. So just lately, I've been buying and smoking a few more cigars, and I thought that it was time to do the old comparison, do the old pipes versus cigars. So Dion is on the Briar.
Yep. So I've got my trusty Blake Mar, and in there we've got a nice full bowl of, or what's half a bowl now of, I couldn't wait. Sorry, of some Gowith Hogarth New Prince. Quite a nice sort of Virginia mix. It's quite sweet. There's a little bit of cav in there as well, I think.
Yeah.
But quite a nice light sort of airy mixture.
Yeah, like maple and vanilla, right?
Quite sweet.
Beautiful blend, actually. Yeah. And just to spice things up, I'm gonna go with a cigar. It's a machine rolled, but it's a nice little short smoke. I've really been enjoying them. It's the Romeo and Julieta Purito. So I'm gonna light that bad boy up. So we thought that what we'd do is we'd go into similarities first, between the pipe and the cigar.
Yeah.
Then we're going to go into the differences, and then we'll do a little bit of a summary final analysis. Yeah. Another thing to say, just before we start, is I've been red-pilled on the Zippo.
I got him.
Yeah, Dion got me in the end. I know, like, back in the day, I was all about the matches, but I love it. So I'm red-pilled on the Zippo now.
And while we're kind of talking on sort of new stuff, so I'm testing out tonight a new Savinelli ashtray cum pipe stand that was gifted to me. This was a birthday present for me.
Lovely gift.
Great, yeah, absolutely great. It's got like a little little knocker on the middle there, and a little stand for the old briar. Really good. So this is maybe sort of the third or fourth time that I've actually took this out to test out. So it's not really a test as such, but it's first time on camera.
Yeah.
And just worthy to note as well, first time I ever picked up anything in terms of decent quality tobacco was in Cuba. So before I'd ever touched a pipe before, my first experience with tobacco was also it wasn't a Romeo and Juliet. I think it was a Cohiba.
Nice.
That they were just doling out to sort of any old Tom, Dick and Harry, which is why an absolute heathen like me had managed to get my hands on one. But yeah, game changer.
And to be honest, I think probably most people's exposure to tobaccos outside of like a little sneaky cig when you're trying to be cool probably is, like when you're a teenager, you're like, probably is cigars, right?
Yeah.
So to go into the, let's start with the similarities.
Yeah.
We'll go with the similarities. So they're both, I mean, obviously when you're talking about tobacco, obviously the comparison is towards cigarettes because it's the most widespread tobacco consumption. So they're both the pipe and the cigar are more premium, kind of more higher quality forms of tobacco consumption. They're both not inhaled. The smoke isn't inhaled. and it's about the taste experience to a large extent. Mostly, it's about the taste experience. We do enjoy the Nick Hit, of course, but
regional as well. I think there's kind of regions to where these things are sort of congregated. But the other thing as well that I think is sort of similar with Gars and with pipes is that you've got like the sort of the blend in the taste for each one. So I'm smoking a particular blend. There's a couple of different types of tobacco in there. They'll case it with something. There'll be something to kind of preserve it in, which will have its own taste as well. And with cigars, it's kind of similar, isn't it?
That's a great point. So obviously that's Gareth Hogarth, New Prince. So the good boys at Gareth Hogarth, they're blend makers. They've put those varieties together. They put the casings and the toppings together to create a certain flavour profile that they're going for. It's a similar deal with cigars because, well, in this case, this is Purito, so it's the same tobacco throughout the whole stick. But generally speaking, a cigar is made of 3 different types of tobacco, which is the filler, the binder, which binds the filler, and then the wrapper, which is the outer casing. Yeah. And more often than not, those three tobaccos are different kinds of tobaccos. Maybe they're from a different region, maybe they're from a different country, maybe they're grown differently in different kind of soils, different kind of sun or shade grown, things like that. Maduro or like a lighter colour, which affects the taste. So a cigar, the finished product is a blend in a sense, because it's been these different kind of tobaccos that have been put together to create a certain profile.
It's like the experience and not the overall taste. Just kind of coming back to something that we touched on, maybe like right in video number 1, maybe Pipecast number 1, which was about the experience of with a pipe. That there are certain things that you can drink with particular blends. Right. There are certain types of cigars, like certain types of pipe tobaccos that might be good for having a drink with a whiskey, or having a drink with a port, or having a drink with a coffee. That's very similar, I think, between the two.
Definitely, yeah. And they are, and to that point, they are sort of they're a taste experience that goes with food and drink. Yeah. So like you have a nice meal, you have a nice drink, and then when that's all said and done, you've got a nice full stomach. Yeah. You light up the pipe, you light up the cigar.
Get your smoking jacket on, straight to the smoking room, retire to the smoking room.
Yeah. And they're both smoking experiences that require a good amount of time. Yeah. So depending on bowl size and stick size, you could be there from 30 minutes to an hour. In some of the larger cigars, you might be up there to 90 minutes to 2 hours.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and they're kind of, it's part of an experience. It's kind of a communal thing, I would say, both of them as well. Typically, like that back in the day, obviously it was retired to the drawing room with a cigar. But like the pipe as well, you'd get the whip the wood out. Yeah, can we still say that? And but it would be a gentleman's pursuit, right? Over a coffee and a coffee or a brandy and a cigar or a bowl. Yeah, discuss the matters of the day.
Yeah, and like cigars are traditionally like a celebration thing, right? So, it's like traditionally like you having a baby. The
still alright.
Yeah. You buy a box of cigars, or like wedding day box of cigars, things like that. Yeah. So they're both like a social kind of thing. Both of us love a solitary smoke.
For sure.
But I enjoy smoke a lot more when you're around. I will say that.
Yeah, definitely.
There's definitely a social aspect to both of them that heightens the experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So the other thing is both require a little bit of ritual. Yeah. I think certainly the pipe more than the cigar.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got like with a cigar, you've got sort of the snip, haven't you? Yeah. And the toast, and there are kind of things, right? The loosening of the drawer as you're kind of going down it. But with like the pipe, you've got the tamp and the pre-light, the false light, and
rubbing out the flame.
Completely. Before you even touched the lighter in earnest, all the matches in earnest, you're rubbing it out and getting the flavours.
Then of course there's the maintenance of the hardware, right? Which you don't have with the pipe. The cigar, because obviously that burns away and it's gone. But the pipe remains.
Yeah, but there's kind of there are things that are associated with both that you would say is kind of ritualistic. There's kind of There's an order of things.
Yeah, man. I mean, you break out the stick.
There's a process.
Smell this. You smell the stick.
Right.
You do a cold draw after you've cut it. By the way, on this subject, I will just say, I was saying to Dion earlier, we were talking about a straight cut versus a punch. I tried out the punch for a while, and I thought I was enjoying it, but I went back to a straight cut.
So can you just explain for the guys that don't know?
Yeah. So
the difference between.
Unfortunately, we didn't bring one in, but with the straight cut, it's like a little guillotine. It's like a circular hole. You put the stick in, and you cut off the cap to create, because cigars are like sealed at the cap,
right?
So you wouldn't be able to smoke a cigar unless you cut it. So you can use a straight cut, which is a guillotine, which just guillotines off the end, or there is a punch, which is it takes out a cylindrical plug from the end so that you can draw through it. But I found that the straight cut just created like a nicer open draw, maybe at some sacrifice of intensity of the flavour, because when the punch hole is coming in at a tighter draw, the flavour maybe is a bit more intense.
Yeah.
But just overall experience, that looser draw for me gets the win. So the straight cut, I went back to the straight cut.
Yeah. It's all I've ever known is like when I've had cigars, get the end off, and give it a just maybe keep just the very very end. I'll keep trying to keep it reasonably tight. I won't just kind of cut it square off. I'll keep a little bit of curve to it.
Yeah, man. I mean, you pay for a good cigar, so I'm not cutting off more than I.
There is that.
Yeah. We'll get to that. Yeah,
especially now.
So there's the ritual aspect. There's the social aspect. They're not inhaled. They're tasted. Good with food and drink.
Both kind of boutique. They've kind of got their own sort of connoisseurship, for want of a better word. That like people that know the good blends and what's good with what.
Yeah.
That seems to be kind of definitely a similarity that sort of binds them together a little bit. Would you say?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I remember when I first smoked a pipe. It was a Latakia blend, and the smokiness, the incense smoke, kind of came through really quickly, instantly. I would say. Well, as I moved on to different kind of blends, I found it difficult to pick out the nuances and varieties in the different kind of blends. Yeah. But it did come with time, and it's the same with the cigars. I've smoked a few different kind of cigars now, and I'm picking up on kind of like differences between different kind of wrappers and varieties of regions and things like that. So I'm not a connoisseur by any means, but it's getting there. And
but there is kind of that aspect to it.
Yeah,
definitely, I would say. So what about differences?
Well,
yeah.
So the first difference that I think we've already touched on is expense, price of these things.
But it's kind of a difference in where that expense goes, would you say?
Yeah, like you were saying. So a good, a decent cigar, I think you're paying at least 10 quid for a Robusto, which is like a 45 to 60 minute smoke, depending on how quick.
So that's what in dollars, that's sort of $12 to sort of $13 maybe.
Yeah. Whereas a 50 gram tin of pipe tobacco, now it's gone up to just under 20 quid.
Yeah.
But that's the amount of smoking time in that 50 gram tin of tobacco is just like depending on how often you smoke, of course, but it'll last me a couple of months, maybe.
But I suppose the difference is in this case is that with a pipe you've kind of got the paraphernalia,
right?
Pipe cleaners. Okay, it's not a lot of money. It's like it's a quid. $1.20, $1.25. For a pack of 50. It's not a lot of money. It's probably even cheaper in the States. They're not a lot of money really for what they are. But then you've things like tampers, lighters, lighter fluid. I guess that's kind of the same. But but like the paraphernalia, like the initial outlay with a pipe, the pipe itself, right? You might be paying 35 to 40 quid for a sort of a reasonable start-up briar, maybe.
Yeah, true. Well,
like you'd want a couple.
Yeah.
You can't buy one.
Case in point. I've kept Savinelli afloat.
He's putting that kid through college.
Yeah. But these things are, buy once, take care of them,
right,
and probably outlast you.
Yeah.
There are expendables like pipe cleaners,
Yeah.
but that's really it.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, there's more of a premium that you pay on a good cigar.
I'd say so.
Is the fact that, I mean, this is a machine rolled, so but generally cigars are hand rolled, so it's a hand rolled product.
Right.
So you have a guy sat there putting the filler in, binding the filler, wrapping it up, making sure that it's the drawer is good. And apparently, it's like a tradition that they still have in a lot of factories that they have a reader. They have a guy.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Basically doing like a live action audio book so that the guys don't get bored.
Right. Yeah. Seen it in the factories in Cuba. Went to the went to the Monte.
No, really.
Monte Cristo factory. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was exactly right.
Nice, accessible Cuban in Monte Cristo.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Not probably on the more reasonable end sort of financially.
Yeah. Cohiba's
still really good.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah, love a Cohiba. I'm slowly getting through the last the ones that I got about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
But they're still a good smoke. But yeah, just going back to sort of differences. So in terms of maybe the tobacco itself.
Right. Of course. Yeah. I mean, they are different. They are different kinds of tobacco, different varieties of tobacco, and both, like for me, both pipe tobacco and cigar tobacco has a kind of incense to it, a kind of perfume. But obviously, you don't get in cigarettes.
Yeah.
But they're different, and I don't have to explain it. For me, the perfume of cigar tobacco kind of hits the palate like a whiskey does. I don't know. It's hard to describe. But there's certainly I read somebody say that they compared cigar tobacco to whiskey and pipe tobacco to wine. So in wine there's kind of more of a breadth of flavors. So you got reds, you got whites, you got rosés, orange wines, and then even within those there you got like a Beaujolais and a Bordeaux, and things like that. With a cigar, it kind of seems like the flavors are somewhat the same. I mean, in my experience so far, maybe someone's going to tell me I'm completely wrong, but a cigar is either earthy and leathery and a little bit spicy and peppery, or otherwise it's creamy and buttery and vanilla-y and cedary. And there are subtle variances within those, depending on wrapper and filler and whatnot. But certainly with pipe tobacco, the flavors are just a lot more varied. You've got the different kind. You've got your straight Virginias, you've got your Burleys, you've got your Periques, English, Balkans, Batacchia, exactly. Aromatics,
and kind of going on from that as well, like the effects of like the room note. That's probably the biggest thing that I noticed. After smoking a really nice bowl of something, even something that was really strong and quite pungent, that I think something like a Navy flake or a Balkan flake, something that was pretty hard hitting, the room note is just off the hook.
Yeah, bro.
It's so good. It smells great.
One of my greatest pleasures is to get in the car and light up a pipe to go to the shop, go and do the shop and come back into the car.
And get the room note.
Yeah, the room note is just incredible.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really get the room note as you're smoking it. It's when you leave the room and come back into it.
But I think that's slightly different with a cigar. It felt like slightly different. I'm sure there is a kind of a room note, but for me, it's a different kind of room note.
It's a different kind. Look, I mean, a cigar, as you're enjoying it, is sensational. It's beautiful. But when you return to the room that you smoked the cigar in, I mean, your birthday recently, we both went through a couple of big cigars.
They were great.
Yeah, and like you said, man, you could smell it for days. And it clings way more. Cigar smoke clings way more than pipe tobacco does. And the room note is a bit more stank. It's not as pleasant as pipe tobacco room note is. I don't know what that is.
Now, let's put it this way, right? Okay, I've kind of half finished this bowl. I'm going to put this down. I'm going to have what's left of my coffee and my whiskey. I'm good to relight that, right? What about cigars?
It's a great point, man. If you let a cigar go out, even 20, 30 minutes later, you come back to it, it's not the same. It's not the same. So when you light a cigar, generally speaking, as long as you're puffing on it every 60 to 120 seconds, things going to stay lit.
Yeah.
Pipe tobaccos, people complain about the relight. Sometimes I'm having to relight. It's just part of the process,
Right.
You do have to relight a pipe.
I used to be so hung up about it.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm having a blaze, but it's no big deal.
It's not a big deal. It is part of pipe smoking. And the thing about the pipe is, sometimes if I fancy a bowl, what I do is pack it ahead of time.
Yeah, right.
And I blaze the top, I char the top, and then I come back to it hours later, and it's better for that.
Yeah.
I've smoked bowls days later,
Yeah.
and it's still good. It's like pizza,
Is that the cake?
I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what
briar
it is.
itself, whatever goes on, but that the topping, you kind of got a nice sort of ashy top that sort of protects it.
Yeah.
The cake inside or the briar, whatever it is.
It could be that. I mean, they tell you not to ash a cigar too much because the ash actually has some kind of insulating property to it. It's probably the same with pipe tobacco, but obviously the ash is on top and maybe it's sealing it. I don't know, but if you let a cigar go out, even within the hour, within the half hour, all the nuance, all the lovely flavour and perfume of that thing is gone.
Yeah.
And it just tastes like ashtray kind of thing.
And then in terms of sort of availability, sort of general availability, now I think we're kind of quite lucky where we are. I made this point earlier, but actually, we've got a couple of places that are nearby. We live in Chesterfield. We've got a little. We've got Devon House News, which is like a little a little shop that sells maybe a dozen different blends of tobacco, pipe tobacco.
It's got Gowith, which is
got
good.
Gowiths, yeah, they're good. Yes, I will. Thank you. We've got Buxton, just up the road.
Yeah,
there's a shop on the corner.
Apple Yards,
and then Matlock. We've got Bridge
News. Shout out to Bridge News in Matlock. Yeah.
So although I was trying to make the point that it's more easily available in terms of getting good quality cigars than it is to get good quality tobaccos, I think that's dependent, isn't it, on where you are and what you've got around you. But strictly speaking, in England, if I'm in a major city, I will find it an easier job to get a decent cigar than I think I would if I wanted a top, like a big range of blends. If I want the kind of blends that they sell in like GQ or in or Smoking, or J&M Barbers, some of the the sort of the premium places where we particularly tend to get our backies from.
Yeah.
You have to go to those places, otherwise I'm ordering in.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. I mean, these places, which I'm absolutely grateful for, Devon House News, big shout out, Bridge News, shout out, Apple Yards, Buxton, shout out. Great, it's absolutely great that we've got these, but pipe, it's it's an increasingly obscure hobby, and that means that these places, they can't really afford to have these big ranges because they have to stock what is most popular, and what tends to be most popular is aromatics. And I'm not a huge fan of aromatics. There are a few that I like, but like the cherries, the vanillas, Cavendish stuff, I'm not huge on it. And it's great to have, if you're out and about and you want a little fix, it's good. But like you said, man, when it comes to breadth of range. For pipe tobacco, you need to be ordering online. That entails a weight, that entails usually a delivery cost.
Right.
But, I mean, in the same vein as the pipe tobacco, we're quite lucky where we are. We've got, shout out to Brimming with Beer, beautiful little micro pub.
Yeah.
They stock cigars.
Right.
So, I'm quite lucky I can head down, not too far from me, and I can pick up a decent cigar. Also, shout out to Mitchell's Wines in Meadowhead, Sheffield, which is also down the road.
Like literally down the road.
Yeah,
as soon as you get off the bypass.
Yeah, excellent range of cigars, really good stuff, and Cubans too. So
very knowledgeable. Really know this stuff.
Great guys, they know this stuff. So the thing is, like I said, these places, these brick and mortar places that stock in the pipe tobacco, they really have to cater to for aromatics, basically.
And something that you touched on as well a second ago, Harry, and you described it as like it's more of an obscure hobby. Would you describe cigar smoking as a hobby?
It's a good point, man. I think something that just popped into my head is that, like, something my dad said when I was a kid, and I think maybe I said that I was, because I was into like snooker for a while. I said I was training for snooker, and he said, you don't train for snooker, you practice snooker.
Yeah.
You train football, you train rugby,
martial arts and stuff.
You train martial arts.
Yeah.
And maybe it's this, maybe there's like that similar kind of dichotomy with pipe smoking and cigar smoking.
Yeah.
I would maybe say that you train to smoke a pipe and you practice smoking a cigar.
Yeah.
Just because there is more of a technique to smoking a pipe. You have to pack the thing correctly. Yeah. You can't be puffing away. You can't be puffing away like a freight train.
Yeah.
You have to learn about breath cadence.
Yeah.
You have to learn about pipe maintenance. There's a lot more to it. Maybe these aspects kind of make it more of a hobby.
Yeah. And an art. You know, I've heard people like when I've been out and about said, "Oh, you don't see that very often." It's a dying art.
Yeah.
Describe it as an art.
Yeah. Whereas I'm just gonna like suck the life out of this thing. Maybe cigar smoking is less of an art. I mean, you get the thing lit, and maybe there's a little bit of, some people like to toast the thing. Some people say it doesn't make a lot of difference. Yeah. You have to cut it right because that can affect draw.
Right.
If you cut it incorrectly, it can start unraveling, which is a nightmare.
Yeah.
But once it's lit, once it's going, as long as you keep that thing lit by puffing on it, every minute to 2 minutes, the thing's going to burn down to the end, and it's going to be good. But with a pipe, there's more technique to it.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good point. But on to the other thing that I was going to say. With the what was I going to say? There's another difference I was going to talk about. Have you got one?
I'm trying up a bit.
There was definitely one I had in mind that I was going to say. Yeah, that's the thing. So, with a cigar, usually, you're paying for a premium cigar. It's a handmade product. So, meaning that somebody has, they've put the thing together, they've put the filler in, they've bound it.
Laboured over it.
Yeah. And that means that a lot of your experience of smoking a cigar is not down to you.
Right. Whereas with a pipe, if I'm going to pack it right, it's on me. If I want, my experience is going to depend largely on my ability to pack that pipe properly.
And of course, you do have to account for material, whether you're going for briar or cob. You do have to account for bowl shape to a certain degree, bowl size.
Yeah. Stem type and length.
Yeah. You do have to account for that. But largely speaking, you pack your own bowl. Yeah. You light your bowl. You tamp your bowl the way that you do, and the experience is largely down to you. Whereas with a cigar, people talk about construction. It's got good construction. It's got poor construction. It unravels when I clip it.
Yeah.
There's not an even burn. It's canoeing, they call it, where like one side of the cigar burns more quickly than the rest. And a lot of these things are down to the manufacturer, the guy who rolled it.
Right.
So you have more control of your experience when you're smoking a pipe.
Yeah.
Than you do over a cigar. That was what I wanted to say. We got any more?
I think that's it for me.
I think that's about it. Yeah. We wanted to keep this one a little bit short, a little bit more succinct. So, yeah, just to wrap up. I have been getting into cigars a little more recently, but I haven't. It's not that I've stopped smoking my pipe.
It's not an either or.
It doesn't have to be an either or, And this is a hobby or a practice that it's all about enjoying yourself.
Exactly.
So, if you fancy a pipe, then it's time to light a pipe. If you fancy a cigar, it's time to light a cigar. And I think probably pipe smoking is more of a winter, maybe like a winter time thing. Like it lends itself, it warms the hand.
Yeah.
The flavors are a bit more like evocative.
Yeah.
And like when the sun's out it feels like it's, you can pretend you're in Cuba.
Yeah. You kind of got your cocktail on the go. It's like when winter, like I'm out fishing.
Yeah.
I've got the bowl lit. It's like sat in my hand, or it's clenching in my gob, and I'm casting away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think like maybe there's something a little bit more. I don't know if this is the right word, but like quaint about pipe smoking.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right word, but
it's kind of a bit anachronistic.
Yeah.
People kind of associate it with sort of old England. It's like, you don't see it very often. You don't see it these days very much.
Yeah.
It's even more niche, I would say, than your average cigar smoke.
It's definitely more niche, yeah. And I think that if you're out and about and you saw a guy smoking a cigar, you don't think that looks out of time.
Yeah.
You see a guy smoking a pipe and it's like, that's a little, like you said, a little bit of an anachronistic, a little bit of throwback. But, at least for me, it calls back to like a nicer time, more pleasant days kind of thing.
But those guys would have smoked both.
Exactly.
And so do we.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, we enjoy both. And so, in the end, I don't think there's a clear winner.
No, I think it's whatever your fancy is.
Exactly.
These guys, again, another shout out for the Orthodox Pipe and Pint Facebook page. Go and see our brother Ellis Spear on there. You see guys on there who've got some lovely cigars on there. You've got some guys who are absolute pipe masters that are on there, and everything in between. But for me, with a nice cup of coffee,
beautiful,
with a nice bourbon, it's not either or. It's whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever floats your boat.
Perfect. Good way to end it, man. Enjoyed it.
Good. Really good. Thanks for the new subscribers.
Yes,
thank you very much.
They're coming in. We're really excited about it.
Yeah. So thanks everybody who subscribed. We're not going to do the usual request for stuff. It'll happen when it happens. But just to say thanks everybody for that. For the guys who've celebrated Christmas already.
Yeah.
Harry's new calendar.
Yeah.
For the NC guys, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Christ is born.
Glorify him. And for us OC guys, we've got it all to come in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
So we'll
stay strong, lads.
We'll do that.
It's coming. Right.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. God bless.
God bless.